Hello everyone, and welcome to the last day of the World Blitz Championship. Today I started a bit late, we had some guests, but I hope you don't mind. Rather than showing you a game by Carlsen or someone from the boards they usually show, I decided to show you a game by one and only Ukrainian Grandmaster Anton Korobov. He was a two-time Ukrainian champion, and his games are always extremely interesting. I remember this one game in particular from last year's World Rapid and Blitz Championship played in Doha, Qatar. He played this amazing King Hunt. I can't really pinpoint which game it was. If any of you know this game, do share in the comments. I will pin your comment so everyone can enjoy this game. But for this game, it's Boris Savchenko with the white pieces and Anton Korobov with the black pieces. This is round 12 of the World Blitz Championship, and for those of you who play the Sicilian, I'm sure this game will be quite a treat. So let's see this game. Savchenko opens with e4 and we have c5. The Sicilian defends by Anton Korobov. Knight to f3, d6, d4, c captures, knight captures, and knight to f6. We have knight to c3 and a6. Korobov goes for the Najdorf variation. Bishop to g5, we have e6, f4, and queen to c7. Still all standard theory of the Najdorf variation. Queen to f3, knight to c6, and here white has a couple of good options. Savchenko could go for a queenside castle here. He could capture on f6, for example. He could capture on c6, but here he plays knight d to e2. Probably a prepared variation for a blitz game. It doesn't really make sense giving black this much. Blocking your own pieces, and okay, you do avoid the exchange of pieces, but Anton Korobov doesn't seem to have a problem with this. He plays, simply continues developing, bishop to e7, Savchenko castles, and b5 now, and already black has started his queenside expansion. And when you have opposite sides castles, the player who starts his attack on the side that he wants to attack first will usually get there first. So we have e5, d captures on e5, f captures on e5, and now knight to d5. We have bishop captures on e7, knight d captures on e7, and knight to f4. And here there are a lot of options. If Korobov was playing a classical game, probably he would have gone for something like rook to b8 followed by a5 and b4, or maybe even rook to b8 and immediately b4. But what's the idea behind the pawn here? Can the pawn on e5 be captured? You can't capture it with the knight because your rook on a8 is hanging, but actually capturing it with the queen is perfectly fine for black, but after bishop d3, you don't really want to grab a pawn in a blitz game and allow your opponent to continue developing. So after knight to f4, Anton Korobov completely ignores this and he castles himself. We have rook to e1, bishop to b7, and now bishop to d3. And again, what's the idea here? Why not capture this juicy e5 pawn? Well, if knight captures, then you allow bishop captures on h7. King captures, queen to h5 check, and after king goes back, you can simply recapture the piece with the rook or with the queen. And while this is still perfectly fine for black, there's no reason to allow this in a blitz game, and Anton Korobov totally ignores this. After bishop d3, he's not interested in the e5 pawn, he plays b4, continues his own plan on the queen side. Queen to h3, an in-between move by Savchenko, threatening checkmate on h7. Korobov stops this, h6. We have knight to e4 now, and it seems like white has started some sort of an attack of his own, but Korobov sees right through this, and he simply now captures the e5 pawn, which is the best move definitely in the position. King to b1, getting the king out of that nasty c-file. The queen is on the c-file, the rook is quickly coming to c8, and this leaves the opportunity of rook to c1 protecting the c2 pawn. But Korobov immediately captures the bishop on d3, we have knight captures on d3, and now rook a to c8. And now white definitely has some issues here. There's really no clear way to protect the c2 pawn. Rook to c1 now isn't really possible because your knight is hanging on e4. So here probably knight e to c5 would be the best move. Kind of blocking it, but then your knight is just stranded there. After this rook a to c8, knight captures on b4 was played. Now the c2 pawn is protected, but this is only temporary. Korobov removes the knight, playing a5, of course. Knight goes to d3, and now comes queen captures on c2. This comes with check. King to a1, and now bishop captures on e4. Rook captures on e4 and rook f to d8, attacking the knight on d3 twice, and there is no way to protect this knight. This is game over for white. If you try something like rook to e3 to add an additional protector of the knight on d3, simply rook captures on d3 wins the game immediately. If you recapture queen to c1, this leads to checkmate. Rook captures on c1, this is checkmate. So after rook f to d8, white had to try something. It's a blitz game. a3 was played, but now comes rook captures on d3. This comes with a tempo on the queen on h3, queen to g4, and queen to g4 doesn't really come with any threat whatsoever. You could simply play f5. This is perfectly fine for black. A lot of moves are fine here for black. But Anton Korobov, as usually, he always plays the most interesting move. He plays rook to b8. He threatens checkmate on b2, rook to b1 defending, and now the instant finisher, rook captures on a3. And in this position, Russian Grandmaster Boris Savchenko resigned the game. The king has no squares. Only move here is b captures on a3, and here either queen captures rook on b1 or rook captures rook on b1 will be checkmate. For example, rook captures, and the king has nowhere to go. A beautiful checkmate, and one in a series of beautiful games by Ukrainian Grandmaster Anton Korobov. So that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I will cover some more games from the World Blitz Championship, of course. And I would like to thank a lot of you. I would like to thank Gregory Harfst, Gerasimchuk, Dmitro, Michael Gorton, William Avery, and Jonathan Davies for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. And Jonathan Davies here made a ridiculously large contribution to my channel. This is, for someone running a chess channel, this is just a ridiculous contribution. So thank you a lot, sir. I really don't know what to say. I feel like Voyboy only several divisions lower. This is quite unimaginable. But thank you, sir, and thank you, everyone. So yeah. That's the game. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Both of them will be from the World Blitz and Rapid Championship, or Rapid. I'll still have to see which one I put. And I haven't had the time to check a lot of the games. I did find this game by Anton Korobov, and I always enjoy games by Anton Korobov. But feel free to suggest any games that you yourself found interesting. Use the hashtag suggestion, and I will make sure to go through all the comments. So that's it. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon.